And here I just want to highlight options that we have in processing a manufacturing order. So your screen should be refreshing any moment now, showing you the process flow for manufacturing. So here you can see we have several ways of creating a production run. The most common way would be to do it the long way, which could be as many as 5 steps. So the first step that you can see here is creating an MO. So MO refers to manufacturing order. It is the same as job orders, production orders, or maybe work orders. We call it manufacturing order. It is the control document that we use to track all material issuances and receipts. The role of the supervisor or the planner is to create the manufacturing order. Once we have that order, the next step would be to issue raw materials or semi-finished goods to produce that product. There could be a third step, which is returns. So if, let's say, there was any excess materials at the end of the production run, or maybe the production run was canceled, or maybe some damage, we could do a return of raw materials to the warehouse. Eventually, something would be produced. So this would be recorded via the receipt assembly step. And then eventually the order would be completed. So that would be handled by the closeout process. So depending on the speed of the production run, so if the client production runs would take 2-3 days or 1 week or 2 weeks to be completed, then the long way would be the best approach to do it. This allows us to record what is happening on the floor as it happens. Aside from the 5-step process, there is a way to simplify it via what we call backflush. So backflush actually combines issuance, receipts, and can even do a closeout if we have defined the system to support auto closeout. So from 5 steps, we can actually just do it in 2 steps if we wanted to. So this backflushing is done in situations where the production process is relatively fast. So that means maybe the production can be completed within 1 shift or within 1 day. And instead of recording separately the issuance and receipts associated with that order, the client would just opt to wait until the end of the shift or the end of the day to record everything in one go. So we call that backflush, and that's the second option for us to process an order. The third way is what we call Kanban, or just in time. Some people call it JIT, which is just in time. For just in time, it's actually a 1-step process. It's very similar to IC assembly, for those of you who are familiar with inventory control of Sage. The main difference with IC assembly is that Kanban allows for variance. So you would know that in Sage, one of the major limitations of IC assembly is that it assumes perfect production runs. So there is no variance in terms of output, no variance in terms of input. So in the real world, this is actually quite hard to accept. If there's always something that goes wrong, or some materials are consumed more or less than expected. So for Kanban, the intent here is for it to be used on small assemblies that happens on the production run. Typically, the process here is what we call a pool production, wherein nobody is telling them that they need to produce. It's based primarily on replenishment. As something is consumed, the workstation would automatically start production to replace it already, and they produce up to a certain stock level, minimum stock level that they want to maintain. So this is like an automatic replenishment routine, and the Kanban is meant only to record what was consumed to produce the quantity that was already completed. So it's a one-step process that the client can use. Underneath, we actually have a fourth method of processing. It's called batch MO. So it's very similar to the five-step process, except that instead of producing one product, the batch MO is designed to handle multiple products being assembled at the same time. So a very good example of batch MOs would be, let's say, slipping or cutting of, let's say, steel rolls or paper rolls. So essentially, the client might start off with one big roll of paper or steel with a length of, let's say, 100 centimeters. And then from that roll, they might need to cut it into 50, 25, 25 centimeter rolls. So instead of creating 2 or 3 separate MOs, the batch MO can actually handle this and automatically calculate the consumption of materials on a proportional basis for each cut. So that's batch MO. So at this point, let me just quickly show you an example for the benefit of those who has not seen it yet. So right now, I just opened the manufacturing order screen. So this is something like SO order entry. So you just want to tell the system what should be produced, when, and how many. So I'm just waiting for your screen to refresh. Let's say I want to produce finished good number 3 for a quantity of 10. Notice how we have here the BOM version selection field. So to the person who asked about BOM versions early on, if you have more than one approved BOM, and assuming that all of them have effective dates, then I would see here a list of BOMs that I can choose from. Yep, I can see that your screen is not yet refreshing, but yeah, I was just talking about the BOMs that can be chosen. If, let's say, you forgot to change the BOM status to approved, or you have set the effective date to be beyond the server dates, then you would see here a blank BOM. You don't have a BOM to choose from for this MO. We have here in the order entry screen the order date. So this is when we expect to start production. The due date is when we expect production to be completed. And then here we also have what we call production area. So the production area actually refers to the production floor or factory floor that we expect to produce this product. So you can create or define as many production areas as you want in manufacturing order. We can then, the main purpose for that is eventually you can create reports on a per production area basis, but also know that we actually support record level security at the production area data level. So that means you can have users that have the rights to issue material, but then we want to restrict that right to only certain production areas. So that's something that can be supported in manufacturing module. At this point, I can add this order. So now the system has created order number 23. And if I click on the material tab, this would actually show me what materials would be needed for this MO based on the BOM that I have selected. If I'm just waiting for your screen to refresh. So what I wanted to highlight here is that under the material tab, you would notice that we have a column for quantity per item. This column can actually support up to 9 decimals. So this is just to emphasize that the system is designed to handle very small numbers. So this, I was just referring to the first column over there, which was the quantity per item. Notice that if we have defined a 10% scrap in this example, this 10% is reflected as additional material requirement. Notice as well that the MO bombs are editable. So if I wanted to, I could actually insert a line or delete a line or even change the quantity per relationship for this MO bomb. So this is how we support make-to-order environments. So if, let's say, your client customizes a lot, maybe they produce white label products, then this is where they could change the label or the color that they would be using for this particular production run. The operation tab is the same. You can edit as needed. If I jump to the total tab, this is where we would see the standard cost, projected cost, and actual costs for this MO. So projected here is based on the standard cost of each component in the MO rolled up to the product. Standard cost is based on the item cost maintenance or standard cost of this finished good item. Actual cost, as the title implies, is the actual cost of issuance to this order. So here, so I just want to quickly highlight, because this order has not yet been released, you would notice that the actual quantity for material cost is still 0. And of course, this would change once we start issuing. So there's one quick question here. Does IC need to be set up to allow fractional quantities? For most clients, this option is actually enabled, mainly because they would deal with certain components with fractional quantities. However, if of course the client can be sure that there is no fractional relationship in their bombs, then it's okay. It's not required to be enabled as long as they are sure. Remember that the bomb has a proportion of the components versus the quantity to be produced, and that means you're dividing things. There's a division formula there. So you might get into trouble if this field is not activated. But again, just to be clear, technically, you don't need to activate allow fractional quantities. But in most cases, it is activated. All right. So that was the MO entry. It's just like creating a sales order or a PO in Sage. Eventually, somebody would approve that order. And when it's approved, the system actually keeps track of who approves it and when. And this is the only time this MO information is shared throughout the company. When the status was new, it could only be visible or viewed by the production manager's supervisors who has access to the MO entry screen. Once the MO is approved, these quantities are now available to be seen from a planning point of view, from a stock inquiry point of view, using the material inquiry in manufacturing. Eventually, for it to be actually processed, it needs to be released. So of course, the client or the user can also jump to release if he wanted to, but it's only when the order is released that they can post transactions against it. So now for MO number 23, let's do a quick example of an issuance. So this is now issuing against this production area. Wait, your screen hasn't refreshed yet. So let me just wait for a moment here. So in the issuance step, what we're trying to simulate here is the issuance of materials from the warehouse to the production floor. From an accounting point of view, this is essentially debit WIP, credit raw material. And the issuance step is typically done by the warehouse personnel based on the material requirement of that MO. So you could print out a pick list and the warehouse man can go around and pick as needed. So I actually have two ways of issuing materials. For today, let me just show you the issuance by product, as we call it. And the main objective here is to issue based on a predefined quantity. So in my example, your screen should refresh pretty soon. I ordered 10, so I expect to issue materials enough to produce 10, but maybe for whatever reason, I want to support partial runs. So maybe today I produce 5, tomorrow I produce the balance of 5. So to easily record that in Sage, what we can use is the issuance by product routine, where I can input the quantity, called base quantity of 5. When I click the arrow go button, you would notice that the system is populating the issue quantity to be exactly what I need to produce 5. At this point, of course, the user can change quantities. You can add, you can subtract based on actual material consumption. Notice how the system also highlights to the user how much is on hand for that item. If the item has a substitute, just like PM001, notice how the system will enable the substitute button. And from here, I can actually substitute and use another item to replace PM001. So your screen is not just refreshing yet, but I just opened the substitute item screen, where it's showing me that I have 2 substitutes that I can choose from. All right, so it popped up just now. Eventually, I would post, and this is now an issuance in manufacturing. From an inventory control point of view, it means that stock has gone out of IC location. In accounting, it's now recorded as WIP. From a manufacturing point of view, this is recording the issuance of material against the MO. So if we go back to MO number 23 and refresh, I would see that there is no output just yet. So let me just wait for a moment here for your screen to refresh. So yeah, sorry for the speed. Seems like the refresh rate is getting a bit slower. But I went back to the MO form, so it should refresh any moment now. And what I wanted to highlight here is when I posted the issuance, it does not trigger a production of the finished good item. So there is no output yet. It just recorded that we have issued out raw materials from the warehouse. If I click on the material tab of the MO, I would see that there should now be issued quantities on a per item basis. I can see the percentage issued versus the balance for each component. So the system would have a way to track how much more is allocated to this MO for future issuance. If I click on the history button, it would show me the issuance number 21 that we have just posted, which items were involved, when was it picked, how much was issued out, where was it taken, and actually it would also show us who hosted that transaction. So this is the MO history for that record. So your screen should refresh soon enough. And then the total tab would now show us actual cost. So the cost there, oh wait, your screen hasn't refreshed yet. Okay, you're looking at the history of the MO. From there, I have closed it and then clicked on the total tab of the MO. Here, I just wanted to highlight that when we did the issuance, there is now actual cost for the material. This actual cost could be any costing method in Sage. So if you want to use average cost, FIFO cost, LIFO, lot cost, serial cost, standard cost, all of those costing methods would be supported. All right. At this point, of course, I won't show it anymore because of the speed, but know that this particular issuance has triggered an IC shipment in Sage. That means the stock cards have been updated, stock of raw materials went down, the cost has been issued to WIP, and then all of this would automatically feed into the general ledger module as well. So maybe just to quickly highlight that, let me see if the screen would refresh fast enough. So I'm just going to inventory control, and I wanted to show you one item that we have transacted early on. So let's just wait for your screen to refresh. Okay, so that's the transaction history. And it would eventually show us that the last transaction for PM001 is recorded as an IC shipment. It should refresh soon enough. So there was a question whether all items on the BOM have to have the same costing method, let's say average or standard costs. So actually, technically, we can support any costing method. In Sage, technically, you can have different costing methods per item. So that would be respected by the manufacturing order module. We make use of the costing method defined in IC item. But before I go there, before I forget, so I was just showing the transaction history inquiry in Sage, and you can see that the last record there is issuance 21, type is shipment for quantity of 5, issued at that cost. And if I double click on that, it would show me the issuance number 21, which is the same document as the issuance that we have done early on. Under the comment column, I could also even see the source document of this transaction, which is MO number 23. So again, the screen is refreshing. Let's just wait for that. So the next step, let me just go back to the transaction process flow. So what I have done was issued. The return is just the opposite of issuance. So it's just simulating something being returned from the production floor back to warehouse. So let's just skip that for now. Let's jump to the receipt. So yeah, the screen is very slow. So let's just wait for a moment for it to refresh. You should be looking at the receipt screen fairly soon. This is, of course, simulating the receipt of the output of the MO. You can do it across multiple MOs at the same time. Notice the screen should refresh soon to show that we have two items that we can receive. One is the main product, the other is the co-product. So yeah, I can see your screen is about to refresh. So just to do an example of a partial production run, notice that we ordered 10. A while ago, I issued enough materials to produce 5. Maybe by the end of the day, I would then be receiving 5. I would then post, and this is now a receipt transaction for manufacturing. So this is the finished good coming into Sage. From a accounting point of view, this would be a debit finished good, inventory, credit WIP, credit labor, credit overhead. The stock card of inventory control would be updated as well. We make use of IC adjustment to create the ledger entry, and the breakdown is of course based on the standard cost. So that was the receipt step, and then eventually, assuming that we have produced everything, I would just move on to close out that MO.